Hey everyone, it's Austin Ward for Lettermen Row, back with another BuckIQ looking at the Ohio State secondary. We've got Chimdi Chekwa, former standout with the Buckeyes and the NFL. And it's a cornerback's worst dream we're going to break down today. The nightmares, the yellow flags when they come out for pass interference. I can't imagine there's anything, maybe giving up a touchdown is worse. Maybe I should say that. But when you see that yellow flag come out, it goes through a cornerback's mind.
Sometimes it depends. Like some referees are real trigger happy. Sometimes as a corner, you know, like, okay, I was beat. This was my way of saving a touchdown. But a lot of times these referees get trigger happy some games, and they're just throwing their yellow flags all over the place.
We've seen that in a number of cases where Ohio State, DBs are wondering what the heck is called. We're sitting in the press box, we have no idea. But when you looked at last year as a whole, was there anything that stood out to you for what might have been causing these issues, or was it just different from week to week? What was in your mind when you saw just the way that year played out?
Yeah, I think a lot of times it comes down to what your position is. Are you in that position to be able to get your head around? Or if you're not, how do you feel comfortable? That's one thing. How are you comfortable playing from being behind? Because as a corner, you really shouldn't panic. You have to make the receiver go make a play. And I think a lot of times when you do get a pass interference call, corners just panic a little bit. They get nervous. I'm a little bit behind. What do I do? Well, you're still in a position where you can go make a play on the ball. Just allow it to happen, have a feel for it, and go make a play.
I feel like we've heard that a lot over the last couple of years. Get your head around. Get your head around.
Yeah.
We'll see if Jeff Hafley can maybe turn that around. Is it just it's a technique thing, confidence thing? Somebody's got to have to tell you to do it?
The one thing is you have to be able to be good playing from behind. You have to be confident in your ability to play from behind and not being able to get your head around.
Gotcha.
And then if you're confident in that, you also need to be able to make that transition. When I'm in good position, now I can also get my head around and be confident that I can get my head around and go make a play.
There you go.
It really comes down to confidence
Gotcha.
at the end of the day.
A position with confidence. Ohio State struggled with that a little bit at times there in the secondary. One game in particular, 5 flags in the rivalry at the end of you don't want to see them at any time, right? But against that team, it was pretty painful. Of course, it turned out pretty fine overall for Ohio State in that game last November. But Chimdi's going to focus just on that one game and a handful of calls there right now to see if we can find anything that the Buckeyes and Jeff Hafley can improve now moving forward. So let's roll the tape. All right, Chimdi, so you go through this, and as you as a cornerback, you're going to have some issue, I think, with some of these calls. You never feel like you get any pass interference. Some of these are hard even now, a couple months later, to understand at all what was being called. But you have one here just to start with, 5 in this game, and Shawn Wade gets it started. It looks, at first glance when I saw this, I thought, okay, I don't really see anything going on here.
Yeah.
You have to kind of slow it down to really even feel like there's much of a flag. But what do you see here? What could have been done differently?
Yeah, it's hard with that angle when the receiver just running away from you and then he gets his head around. They try to throw that back shoulder fade, but the ball is not actually thrown to the receiver.
Yeah.
So now it looks like the receiver's trying to get back to the ball and you're in his way pretty much. But I think from a corner standpoint, the best thing you can do in this situation is sink your hips and keep your arms to yourself and get ready to make a play on the ball. I think you sink your hips, get your eyes around. When you're running towards that receiver and then the ball's not thrown accurately, now it makes an appearance of pass interference.
Sure.
Because the referee, all he sees is you guys collide and the ball landing.
Is there anything at the start of this play and coverage that Shawn Wade needs to change, or is this still pretty good coverage start to finish in your mind?
I think it's difficult because they run a natural rub route, the 2 receivers, and it puts Wade behind. If I was to change anything, I would have the outside corner come up on the ball since his guy's on the ball, and have Wade back up so that he can get through all the traffic. That's the biggest thing. Otherwise, he's going to be behind the start every time because the receiver's running right at him.
Gotcha. All right, so that's one down out of this game where Ohio State's battling the officials and Michigan. We kind of, some of these with Jeff Hafley, we don't even know what was called. We skipped ahead later in the game here. We're just going to ignore that one basically. And then you have here another questionable one, maybe at best. I don't know what you see, what Damon Arnett can do differently.
I think the biggest thing is probably try to stay a little bit in better on top coverage. It's tough because he has that help in the middle of the field, so you don't want to be too far on top of the route. You want to be right where he's at, right underneath, and force him to throw that ball over the top of you. And the ball's inside, he's outside the receiver, so he can see the ball. So typically they don't call pass interference when the corner is looking back at the ball. I'm not sure what the referee saw. It's hand fighting on both sides, so it's hard for me to really critique this one. to be honest.
When you look at this, there's all that talk about press man. You go back to the line of scrimmage there with Arnett. Do you like what you get here? Is the release, he lets him come inside, is that okay? Is that what you want in this situation? What do you see just at the start of the play?
Yeah, I think he does a good job because what you have here is you have a single high coverage. Your help is deep, middle, and the receiver has somewhat of a tighter split. So you want to keep that receiver inside because they can't throw a deep inside route.
Gotcha.
They can't do it because it's going right to the safety. So the only deep pass they can throw is that deep outside corner route that they're trying to get. And I think Arnett does a good job of staying on the outside hip. Unfortunately, the receiver tries to push him through, and as a corner, you have to try to protect yourself from getting pushed off, and the referee is clearly offensively biased in this case.
Maybe he's trying to help tighten up the score, too. Who knows? Hey, we're not going to get into those conspiracy theories, but it was weird. I mean, I don't see a whole lot in that. And,
no.
Surely Michigan fans were wanting the penalty, but
it's funny because Arnett thought he got an offensive pass interference. If you see it, he's throwing the flag. But
he was going to have a rude awakening after that. So.
Right.
You have another example here with Michigan trying to take a deep shot, and another example where I know how you see this, Chimdi, that it's Sheffield might have been asking for the same help that Arnett was on the play before.
Yeah, out of all of these clips, this was probably the best coverage. He's in the lead position. He gets into the receiver. He gets his head around. Usually when you get your head around, you get into the receiver, there's no pass interference because at that point, you're just like the receiver. Yeah. Like if you imagine Sheffield being the receiver and doing what he's doing, you wouldn't call offensive pass interference. So I don't see why, in this case, you call it on the corner.
I mean, I guess the way they were calling it in this game, you'd see this hook right here. And if you're talking about if Sheffield was a receiver, he would have a real case, right? I mean, if it could go the other way, I struggle to understand how that's defensive pass interference, but whatever. I'm not an official. We've talked so much about getting the head around. Yeah. Sheffield was able to do that here in pretty good coverage, tight coverage, in phase, I guess, as you guys would say. Mm-hmm. Anything that you can find fault with, it seems like you said this was the best one of the day.
No, the only thing I would say is get that other arm free and try to go pick that ball off. Okay. The receiver's obviously holding his arm, and I guess that's how he draws his pass interference. But if you can try to get that free, you got to become a receiver at this point because you're in perfect position and try to go at it with two hands. I think a lot of times corners have that defensive mindset, and it's hard to activate, okay, now I'm in position to go make the play and go make the pick. So I think that would be my only critique.
All right. So there was a lot of talk last year about those pass interferences for Ohio State. Sort of a season-long issue that came to a head in the rivalry game, but sometimes they're not doing anything wrong, and it's not just a cornerback sin. It's hard to break down, see those issues. There are others, of course. We could go find some more glaring examples, but this was one day where the flags were flying, and we want to break that down for you with Chimdi right here on BuckIQ. So thanks for Chimdi for coming in to hang out with us, look at the OSU secondary. I'm Austin Ward. We'll see you next time.